Welcome to Holistic Human Performance Podcast. My name is Gena Bradshaw, where we talk all things holistic health, wellness, spirituality, fitness, meditation, energetics, and so much more to help you become the healthiest version of yourself. Let's dive in. This is not medical advice. This is simply to help you on your journey through health, fitness, and wellness. I hope this helps. You can complement this with anything that you are doing currently in your life. Enjoy. Have you ever felt absolutely hopeless when it comes to your health, body pain, chronic disease, mental and emotional distress, and your stress management? Yeah, I've been there too. And after years of my own health and healing journey, learning all of these different holistic healing modalities and tools, I've finally come to a point in life where I have absolutely never felt better. And I want to teach you those tools. And that's why I've created the Magnetic Mobility Meditation Program, designed specifically to tap into your body, listen to the inner wisdom it's trying to share with you, and really connect your mind, body, and soul so that you can be the healthiest, happiest version of yourself and be able to thrive in your life and truly learn about your own energy, what you need, what your non-negotiables are, as I combine this body-based practice to help you reclaim your health and thrive in your life. And did I mention that you get a 5-day free trial to the Holistic Human Performance Wellness Center, where you can access all these different programs, on-demand videos, meditations, breath work, movement, exercise, nutrition coaching, all to help you biohack your life, enhance your health and well-being, and to help you have these tools that you can put in your toolbox and you can utilize them whenever, wherever you need. Go get your 5-day free trial at www.holistichumanperformance.co/academy. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Holistic Human Performance Podcast. I'm your host, Gena Bradshaw, and today we have a very special guest with us. We have Matt Simpson. He is a microdose mentor and author who helps guide people to maximize the benefit of psychedelic healing to live healthier and happier lives. He works with people suffering from PTSD, addiction, and depression, and helps them get their lives back. Matt, you're the first person on this podcast to talk about, psychedelics and microdosing. I'm very intrigued on the topic, and I'm really excited to dive in with you. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Gena. I'm really happy to be here and happy to be able to share the good news as we're amid a psychedelic renaissance, and there's a massive cultural phenomenon right now of people microdosing ahead of some big potential changes here to how the West is approaching mental health.
Yeah. Okay. So this is great to start off. So I kind of want you to backtrack, like what kind of got you, because you have an interesting story, and what kind of got you into even kind of, stumbling upon microdosing? Like, how did you get to that point?
Well, I started with the macrodosing first.
Okay.
It was my 35th birthday, 2014. I just sold a business in Chicago, the Chicago Loop I'd been working on for 7 years. And while I was supposed to be out hooting and hollering with the new brass and thinking about all the money and new responsibility and career trajectory, all I could think about was this path of service that I'm on right now. And 2 months later, I was down in the jungles of Costa Rica having a profound healing with ayahuasca. And that set in motion this healing journey. It allowed me to get into my nervous system to heal the childhood sexual trauma that garbled up my nervous system and
Right.
was at the root of my depression, my dis-ease, my pill popping, my drinking, and just overall malaise and apathy. And I had a kind of a visionary experience where I could finally see a way out of this personal hell of the mind that I created. And I came back. Took me 9 months to untangle myself from my corporate career and to leave. There was a buyout involved, so I wanted to leave on good measure, because
Right.
there was money involved. And but December 9th, 2015, I walked away from my career and never looked back. And I went on an 18-month travel journey, healing journey to
Yeah.
to heal and to make sense of this experience that I had, and to figure out why I'm here and how I can best serve my gift and offering to our collective awakening.
Wow, that's really interesting. So, okay, so I've microdosed once in my life. So like I can kind of resonate with what you're saying. I've never done any other type of like psychedelic or ayahuasca. But can you just for the listeners, like what is microdosing? Like what is it?
Yes, absolutely. It's when, per Dr. Jim Fadiman, the OG godfather of microdosing, he was dosing people with LSD in the 1960s when the government crackdown came.
Mm,
Per Dr. Fadiman, it's 5 to 10% of a peak ceremonial experience or a high dose or a macrodose experience. So it's a different application of the same powerful medicine. The best way that I can describe it is 3% more empathy, 3% more courage, 3% more self-awareness.
mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's a powerful strategy that people are utilizing to get off of the pharmaceuticals. They're utilizing it to boost mood and energy levels. They're utilizing it to and it was our if we back up a little bit to 2010, 2011, when Dr. Fadiman wrote and released his book, The Psychedelic Explorer's Guide. He showcased 8 or so microdose case studies. And,
Mm,
they were microdosing for boosting mood and energy levels, and for deepening their spiritual connection. And lastly, for boosting cognition and creativity. And the Silicon Valley tech culture got a hold of it, and the rest is history. It's thought that a third of our C-level Silicon Valley tech executives and the coders in the Valley are all microdosing.
mm. Okay, so question is because I don't legality know. Like, is it legal across the United States? Like, I know because I know like I'm in New York. Like, I don't think it's legal here, right?
It's a little tricky. We're in a time where there's a massive decrim movement,
Yeah,
decriminalization.
yeah.
Oregon in the 2020 election said no to the war on drugs and said, hey, this is a mental health challenge. We're going to decriminalize all plants. And,
Okay.
and that was a big FU to the war on drugs, saying, hey, this is not working. We want to approach this in a humanistic, compassionate, it's a mental health challenge, not a
Right.
criminal challenge. And
Right.
then Colorado followed 2 years ago. Um, California and Massachusetts, they're going to be voting in the November election. But major metropolises all over America have decriminalized these, plants, just psychedelic plants, plant medicines. DC, Detroit, Ann Arbor, Seattle, San Francisco, Oakland, Denver. I mean, there's a long list of metropolises that have joined suit. So to answer your question, it's a little bit gray,
Yeah.
but this is a different application of the same powerful medicine, and frankly, I think the powers that be have their hands full with the last I heard, 100,000 deaths of despair to the opioid crisis last year. That's a lot of body bags.
A
I'm here in
lot.
I'm here in Chicago, and I looked at the stats, and they said 2,200 people in Cook County alone. That's a lot of people. That's 7 people a day in the Chicagoland area, and we're just a normal city relative to. I mean, this is happening all over the country.
All over. There was this Netflix series, I forget what it's called, but it was on opioids, and that like blew my mind. I mean, I knew it was bad, but I didn't realize how bad it really is. Like, people end up homeless and on the streets from becoming addicted to something that, a doctor prescribed to them because they had back pain, as it's really wild. So now can you tell us a little bit like how does it work, right? Like is there like specific protocols? Like how would one I mean, because you're a mentor, so like how would that work?
Yes, there's microdosing and then there's intentional microdosing.
Mm,
People do it willy-nilly. They might take this here and there, kind of ad hoc. I think that they're potentially missing out on big opportunities. I always say that besides legality, the biggest risk of microdosing is missing the infinite potential reward. So we want to have
mm,
a very clear intention on the front end. Why are we embarking on this journey? Why are we engaging arguably the most powerful medicine on earth? What are we seeking to co-create with the sacred medicine? And then we set the time frame about 2 months. If you're working with a coach, maybe 10 weeks or 3 months. If you're working with a psychedelic informed coach or therapist or counselor or psychiatrist, maybe there's a little bit of a longer arc there for more behavioral change. The the way that I typically start my clients with the Fadiman protocol. That's where we dose on day 1, day 4, day 7, day 10, day 13, 16, 19, and so on. Again, we do that for at least 2 months to start. Day 1 is dose day. Day 2 is a transition day. People often feel even more lifted on day 2. Day 3, we go back to normal, reset our tolerance, and we start the cycle all over again. We're dosing in the morning. It has a slight stimulant effect. But the hallmark of the experience is slight boosted mood, boosted energy levels, a little bit more self-awareness, a little bit more empathy, a little bit more courage, a little bit more self-compassion, where we can start to isolate some of these thought patterns,
mm,
and we can start to identify them and start to identify what is our work to do. And and I always say that the what makes it, just a normal microdosing protocol versus an intentional protocol is that earnest commitment to doing the work.
mm.
And which is, I think is very, I've listened to a few of your podcasts, is very aligned with your ethos, of knowing yourself. You want to move your body. We want to take time for meditation. We want to do journaling, maybe some breath work. We want to get out in nature from time to time. We want to have healthy boundaries with tech. We want to all these things that we and having the microdose kind of bring more into the fold, so to speak. It works as an accelerant.
Mm. Okay. Yeah. So it kind of just like, from my understanding too. So th does this work directly with, I mean, it obviously works with your nervous system, your brain, your nervous system, your spinal cord, your subconscious mind? Is that how it kind of, yes,
Yes,
operates?
yes,
Okay. Okay.
yes.
Because that's where, I mean, 95% of the programming is. It's like what's that hardware to the software, really. And these like limiting beliefs and blocks. Um, so I'm curious with like PTSD and depression, what are some of the things like you've seen with clients and how, they've ultimately changed their lives from this? What are some things that you've seen?
Yeah, there's a big opportunity to reframe our past hurts, reframe our traumas. I worked with a veteran recently who was struggling with post-traumatic stress disorder and was drinking a lot. That's what we do here in the Midwest. We cope. That's what we do. I grew up in Wisconsin, and our baseball team is the Brewers. Is like, hey, you start expressing emotions when you're a teenager, and like, here's a six pack. This is how we deal with it here. So but he was sick and tired of being sick and tired, and sensed that there was something here, and it had positive experiences back in the 70s. It was like, all right, I want to go back to this. I want to give this a shot. And we engaged in an intentional microdosing protocol. And
Mm,
his cravings for alcohol, he even used the M word, the miracle that his cravings went away. And we channeled that energy into meditation, into
mm,
journaling, into moving your body.
mm,
And it was an opportunity for him to realize that he was carrying this heavy load, and an opportunity for him to reframe it, and an opportunity to embark on this wondrous journey of self-discovery, this brave journey through the heart.
mm. Yeah, that's pretty fascinating that, and I've read some research too on people who have embarked on these journeys and like their addictions disappear, their anxiety disappears, their illness disappears, and there's no like explanation for it. But I think it's super interesting for us to note that Number one, it's extremely intentional, just like everything in your life. Like you want to be super intentional with it. I know when I tried, I was, so I did have like a coach tell me kind of what to do, but in general, my intention was writing and really being able to sit down. I had like writer's block and I was just going through it and I sat down and I was able to finish out my manuscript and things like that. So it was pretty cool experience. I felt very euphoric. It was, and again, I think it's going to be different, obviously, for people who have never done any type of like holistic healing modalities, have incorporated that into their lives before. I think it might be a different experience. You would obviously know more on that, but yeah, it was pretty cool. I did it for 2 days, very short period of time, but I was intrigued. I wanted to try it and I wanted to see kind of, what what the effects were.
And it sounded like it helped you move through those blockages.
Yeah, it did. And as you were speaking, I'm like, that's so interesting because that's what my coach said. Make sure you have an intention when you go into this. And yeah, it completely helped me. And to be honest with you, I think a lot of people, when they're going through their healing journey, yes, origin story is very important. However, I don't think we need to know all of the things of like what's blocking us. It was kind of one of those things that, you know, I was feeling blocked, but it wasn't like it popped up in my mind like this is what it stems from. It kind of just helped me to like move through, I guess, whatever stagnancy there was. And I was like, okay, cool. Like moving on.
Yeah, beautiful. What you're describing is flow, the
Mm,
flow state, and these medicines help us get into the flow state. And as Dr. Huberman says, it's not neuroplasticity, it's neuroplasticity towards a directed aim. And
mm,
this is where things could go sideways with these medicines, is that people are taking these powerful medicines that do promote neuroplasticity and they're not directing it, they're not focusing it towards a given goal. Then potentially they could get lost in the wilderness, so to speak. And because we are in this more suggestible, more neuroplastic state. Our default mode network slightly goes offline, and there's an opportunity for us to get behind the curtain, so to speak. The
mm,
high dose, I always say that it's 4 to 6 hours, 6 to 8 hours, depending on the medicine, of the curtains of your subconscious mind peeled back.
mm.
But with microdosing, it's very, very subtle. It's again that 3%. I so often hear from my microdosing clients they can struggle better, that they can do the hard thing and kind of lean against their edge, so to speak.
Kind of like that capacity has now grown where they can like withstand without like crumbling to whatever, ails them basically, which is pretty cool. Now, so I'm curious because I know I read that you give 100% proceeds to whoever buys your book to veterans, which is very cool. Can you tell us a little bit about your book? And then kind of I'm curious about, because there is a lot of struggling veterans. So I'm curious how this has kind of helped that community.
Yeah, this is a beacon of hope for the veteran community. They're leading this charge. And I'm not a veteran.
Yeah.
When I traveled around the world, I went on this travel journey. It was month 17 of this 18-month travel journey that I came across this veteran collective soul healing mission. And I just knew in my bones that with every fiber of my being, that this was my work to do, to share and
Mm,
to be a bridge and to get the word out that our veterans are taking their lives at 24 per day. And that number is likely far greater when you start factoring in deaths of despair and alcoholism and some of these other challenges that are slow suicide. And so again, knowing that this was my mission, to contribute to and to play my small part in. I've been advocating for our veterans ever since to get healing with plant medicines, and they're finding benefits with the microdosing, with the macrodosing. They're all different tools, and a lot of veterans, they have deep rooted traumas in their nervous system,
yeah.
and maybe we need something stronger than a microdose, and maybe a microdose is a good place to start. a microdose protocol, and we could maybe dial in our integration practices of meditation and mindfulness and breath work and journaling and moving our bodies before the high dose experience. But and I'm very sensitive. I felt this years back, kind of the polarization and the discord, and my cage was rattling, so I had to go out into this unknown to find healing.
Mm,
And now I look at our veterans that they can push this edge and show us, and if they can heal and get right after going to war, that's going to send a huge signal to all of us who are struggling. Everybody's struggling with something in 2024, and they're going to promote community resilience. And they're all leadership trained. They know honor, they know integrity, they know courage. They just need medicines that work. And our most esteemed institutions have green lighted these medicines for therapy. Johns Hopkins, NYU, UCLA, Stanford. The list goes on and on.
yeah, that is really amazing because it's a huge crisis. And to think about, honestly, like the first thing that comes to mind when you have veterans, right? It's like their healthcare, like they basically get nothing. It's kind of like they come home and they're thrown to the wolves of the world, and they have to handle now living, on a day-to-day basis. And their health insurance sucks, and it's just sad to see. Like you said, it's like the slow suicide. It's wild. And so tell us about your book. I'm very curious.
Yes, I wrote a book, Worth the Fight, Acting for a Better World, A Guide to Spirituality, Psychedelic Medicines, and Overcoming Trauma. In it, I share my story only to the degree to which it tells a larger narrative about what is possible, about coming together over what is shared. And especially again in these polarized times where we can hardly agree on anything, to have this veteran collective soul healing mission, and healing with plant medicines, and getting our brave veterans an opportunity to heal. This is something that the left and the right both agree on.
Right.
I was in Denver for the 2023 Psychedelic Science Conference, and to see Governor Rick Perry on stage, very conservative. He's dapper in his suit,
Yeah.
and to see Governor Rick or Jared Paulus of Colorado, a gay man, a very liberal, and Rick Doblin, and everybody's hugging, and there's brotherly love, and we're 11,000 people were gathered in this arena, and coming together over the spirit of harmony, over what is shared. And
Mm,
to see and Governor Perry, when he was the governor of Texas, seeing all of these suicides, and it softened his heart, and he'd seen enough, and he'd seen enough transformation with these medicines. And again, to have this be a rallying point, a potential unifying point for our fractured nation and global human family, is something that it's worth the fight.
yeah, coming together as one. That's so interesting. And what a cool conference.
Yeah, it was so cool. It was so cool. And in the book, I fancy it as a 308-page psychedelic integration program. So I'm empowering my readers to get the most out of the experience, to be healthy, happy, and strong, and to do the work that they're here to do. I share all the different things that I came across in the land of esoteric. Yoga training, and I trained with Wim Hof and his team, and
Nice.
all the different things that I came across that I utilized to heal the childhood sexual trauma in my nervous system, to go from being stuck in this trauma response to living my dream life in service to our collective awakening.
That is so cool. Like, look at all the breadcrumbs of life and then kind of like where it brought you. I really try to make that a point to other people, when you do go through adverse times, any really like big trauma, big T trauma, little T trauma. It's about the evolution of yourself, your soul, the collective, and it's gonna put you on the path to where you're meant to be, and kind of like your soul's mission and purpose, which leads me into kind of like that spirituality aspect of it. So what I find really interesting in the 70s, people started to integrate spirituality and psychedelics as like one, but I feel like now it's kind of separated where it's you have spirituality, but then you have like that category of psychedelics kind of aside it. So can we let's kind of like unpack that and kind of your observation on spirituality and kind of how that natural medicine plays a role.
Yeah, I think that very interwoven in the psychedelic experience. It's a deeply spiritual experience. In the truest sense of the word spirit derives from spiritus, meaning of the breath. And so there's an opportunity. And the more I do this work, the more I ponder: is it about the psychedelics, or is it about how the psychedelics help us reconnect
Yeah,
to the breath, and they help us
right.
reconnect to? And when we are connected to our breath, we're connected to our life force, and then we can regulate our nervous system at will. And when we can do that, yeah, that's a much better, more optimal situation to go for our dreams, because we have this awareness when we're feeling dysregulated. We know what to do. We know that there's breathing patterns that can amp up our energies. We know that there's breathing patterns that can calm down our energies, maybe even help us sleep better.
Hmm. Is there anyone that you would say like, hey, this is not for you?
Yeah, the anxiety is contraindicative. I always say when someone's anxiety is stronger than their depression, because so often they're comorbid.
Mm,
I've worked with many clients that have anxiety, and the microdosing softens their anxiety, or it helps them become more aware of it, so they can start to make the adjustments. But if someone has anxiety and they're not willing to put in the inner work, yeah, you probably don't want to go near these medicines, because it's going to exacerbate that, unless it's the high dose. I know that there's wonderful data to support when someone is in a safe, supported environment, and they're with a qualified professional. Again, in a very safe space, they take 4 grams of mushrooms, and to really go to that place. So often, I subscribe to Dr. Gabor Mate's directive that trauma is at the root of all of our dis-ease. So
yeah.
there's a wondrous opportunity to liberate the energy of trauma into the energy of life. But the microdosing, again, can exacerbate the anxiety if we're not prepared to do the inner work, if we're not prepared to journal it out. I always say, well, what's the difference between a anxiety attack and a really good journaling session? Well, it's the frame that we put on it. What's the difference between an anxiety attack and a killer workout at the gym? It's the frame that we put on it.
Absolutely. No, that's very important because, people will use this without the framework of like a coach or someone to like guide you through it. And again, if you don't have experience like doing the inner work, those holistic healing tools, it can be confusing and it could be like what is coming up for me right now? I don't know what's going on. So it's very important to work with someone who's qualified, who's a professional, who knows what they're doing. Are there kind of things that you would just for people who are intrigued by this work, like what should they be looking for? What should they be looking for in a coach kind of thing?
I would say that if the coach is psychedelic informed, how do they show up to the world? Have they climbed the mountain that's in front of you? That's something to think about as we're shifting this paradigm. And yeah, it is really important that they've had experience, because I believe that a degree to which the facilitator has gone within is the very same degree to which they can hold space for their clients'
Hmm.
transformational growth. So that's very important. I do extend free 30-minute fostering flow empowerment sessions, so I'm happy to extend that to your audience. They can reach out to me. It's a wondrous opportunity for us to shine light on the incredible possibility on the path ahead, and maybe some obstacles and challenges that they might be struggling with. They can find more about my this service mission at worththefightbook.org.
I'll leave that in the show notes for people too, so they can find you right from there.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
you're welcome. So, as we wrap up, are there any words of wisdom you would like to leave the listeners?
Yes, there's a couple things that I wrote here that some threads that I'd like to tie in further.
Please do.
If we can do one on the macro level and then maybe one on the micro level,
Absolutely.
there's so much to be hopeful for. As just a few weeks back, the FDA accepted the non-disclosure agreement by MAPS, the Multidisciplinary Association of Psychedelic Studies, that has a cure for post-traumatic stress disorder, which affects 8% of our population at any given time. They've been doing these clinical trials since the 80s, the 1980s, to restore these medicines to their proper place in the Western medical model. And
Wow.
the phase 3 clinical data is very, very strong. It shows that 70% of those that had chronic PTSD for an average, I believe, of 15 years are shedding their diagnosis. They no longer qualify for PTSD after this. So it's a cure. And it's not just the MDMA, which MDMA, the club drug ecstasy, it's MDMA with assisted therapy. There's
Mm,
6 to 9 non-drug interventions where they're having this therapeutic sessions, building a therapeutic alliance. So the participants are going to feel safe with the male and female therapists when they are under the influence of this powerful medicine.
mm,
The medicine downregulates their nervous system. They feel safe to go to that place, that trauma, often from the early years of childhood development. And then from there, they can shake it out, they can cry it out, they might scream it out, whatever they're doing, they're going to finish the trauma cycle.
mm,
And then from there, new things can come in. They're clearing that energetic space so new things align with their intention can come forward. And they're setting in motion this wondrous healing journey. As Rick Doblin says, they're awakening their inner healer and learning how to cope with the stresses of life. So that's a very hopeful signal. And we're going to find out by August 10th. The FDA has given expedited review. So, I wrote in my book that we were supposed to find out by mid 2021. It's just like, and the pandemic, of course, pushed things down the road, and they've been
right.
kicking this can down the road for years, actually since the 1980s. And
Wow.
so here we are, we're on the cusp of this massive potential shift, which Rick Doblin says will be the domino that tips all the others. So this is going to be a big, aggressive strike on this pill a day model that we've been fed and led to believe is universal to the human experience. So that's again another hopeful data point. And this idea of the boosted neuroplasticity
Mm,
is the leverage point here. That's where the magic in microdosing, and that's where the magic in macrodosing and just psychedelics in general is. And neuroplasticity is our brain and our nervous system's ability to change to internal and external conditions. So that is where the change can happen. We're in this more suggestible, more we know that behavioral change here in the West is very, very uncommon, but when we have this boosted neuroplasticity, we feel safer to lean into our edges and to go to that place and again start to liberate that energy of trauma into the energy of life.
love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's beautiful. And thank you for sharing your story and being vulnerable because I know a lot of people will resonate with that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you seeing the value in that. And yes, I do that as an invitation to others that are struggling. 1 in 4 women experience sex abuse in the early years of childhood development, 1 in 6 men, and that number's likely far greater.
Yeah. I just want to say I've worked with a couple of women and men who have been through sexual trauma in childhood and eventually, they stuffed it down, didn't work on it, and they got very sick from not being able to express themselves in a safe way, share their story, be vulnerable, speak out. And it's super important to know that you're not alone. You're not
Absolutely.
alone.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thank you so much. Matt, where can people find you?
They can find me at worththefightbook.org, or I'm on Instagram at worththefightbook. And those are good places. Yeah, feel free to DM me, and I'm here to serve and help any way that I can. And I do have a magic and microdosing and mentorship program where I guide people on 10-week microdosing journeys. And for me, this is Dr. King's civil disobedience. I provide the medicine. It's safe medicine. It's tested, and it's something that is powerful. And I've guided over 100 people on this journey.
That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you. What a beautiful story.
Thank you.
Guys, if you like this episode, like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.
Thank
Bye.
thank you, Jenna.